You may be wondering, is the new STAAR test really that new? In this video, part 3 of my STAAR 2.0 series, I will discuss the major changes to the STAAR tests in 2023 and how these are not really that new when it comes to nationwide standardized testing. Angela here from Custom Classroom, helping make test prep simple. Let's start with the new platform for STAAR 2.0, and that is testing online. Students will now take their tests on a computer. But we are not the first. Many other states have already been testing students online for years, like the Common Core Smarter Balance test and Florida's FSA test, now FAST test. I mention these two tests since I have found many similarities between these tests and the new STAAR 2.0. Now let's talk about the new item types. In part 3, I discussed how many of the new item types are really just minor changes to traditional multiple choice questions. But on the reading or reading language arts STAAR 2.0, the match table grid question and the constructed response questions, both short and extended, are very different and will require more direct teaching to expose students to the format and what is expected. Let's look more closely at the match table grid. Here's an example from one of Florida's past tests that says, fill in the bubbles to show how different characters advance the plot of the passage. More than one bubble may be filled in for each character. Or let's look at this one where it compares passages, where students need to fill in the bubbles to show how the author presents passage 1 and presents passage 3 presents information about sonar systems. So here they're going to compare them and how they're different and similar. This is the most common way I've seen this type of question used in the past. Okay, so what can I learn from this? Well, for starters, it can be a relief to know that we're not the first school or state to try out these types of questions. They have been trialed and tested for years with other students around the country. Additionally, we need to be forward-thinking, knowing that certain types of questions might confuse our students simply due to the format and not what they know. So this is where some direct teaching and exposure to sample questions might be necessary to best set students up for success. So if you want to learn more, check out my video where I specifically work through a table match grid question. Now for the change that I feel a lot of teachers are most worried about, the short and extended constructed response questions. This is the most common type of question I've seen on all the other state tests that I write prep for. It's been used and tested for many, many years in other states. Here's an example of how the new STAAR short constructed response question might look like. Now I know these can be scary since STAAR has never tested anything like this, but just because it's never actually been tested does not mean students have not been writing short constructed response questions for almost all their years in school. This type of question is one of the most common ways we as teachers check for understanding. The cool thing about this type of question is that it lets students interpret the text in different ways, since more than one answer can be correct, unlike multiple choice. These questions are graded by real humans and teachers like you. Now for more specifics about grading. A short constructed response question is graded on a 2-point rubric. Now these rubrics will be developed specifically to match the question, so no set rubric is available, just guides and samples to show you how the rubric will be applied to grading a sample question. And now for extended constructed response. Here is an example of what it might look like. And I want to remind you that this will always tie back to a passage that a student has read, which is different from years past. Now, this is not completely new since students in 4th, 7th grade, and high school have been completing compositions like this one in the past. Before, it was based on sometimes a simple quote or just a connection to their life. Now they will be having to connect it to a passage. I know it is very stressful that a long writing question is being tested every single year, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Students do write like this throughout the school year, in every grade level. So the idea is not new, it's just a new added pressure of passing that creates stress. First, you need to change your mindset. You are an amazing teacher, and all that you do for your students day in and day out is meaningful. Second, the more you educate yourself about the details, the more confident you will feel. So the extended constructed response question will now be graded on a 5-point rubric. Graders will be looking at two things: the students' ideas and then their actual writing process and conventions. Students can receive up to 3 points for their idea development. This is how they develop their central idea, explain the evidence, organize the information, express their ideas, and have an awareness of purpose and audience. Then they can receive up to 2 points based on their conventions for sentence structure, punctuation, capitalization, grammar, and spelling. I do have a video that goes into a bit more detail about extended constructed response questions. I know that this can be very overwhelming, so take a deep breath and try to relax. Try to find a simple strategy that you know you can help your students implement over and over again when writing constructed response questions. This way, the question will seem less daunting and more manageable. For example, you might want to use something like the RACE strategy: restate, answer, cite evidence, and explain. Remember, you've got this. You and your students will survive STAAR 2.0. We are not the first state to make all these changes. We can and evolve and will evolve along with the current trends in standardized testing. Next, tune in to my part I dive into what to do if you do not agree with all the changes coming.